30 BC, August 1st, Mark Antony, Roman politician and general, commits suicide after he's defeated by Octavian at the Battle of Actium at 53. 1137, August 1st, Louis VI, King of France, dies. 1628, August 1st, Francesco Gonzaga, composer, dies at 37. 1857, August 1st, Charles Turner, engraver, dies. 1918, August 1st, John Riley Bannister, American cowboy and Texas Ranger, dies. 1966, August 1st, Charles Whitman, former Marine, kills 16 at University of Texas, shot by cops. 1980, August 1st, Strother Martin, actor, dies of heart attack at 61. 2006, August 1st, Jason Rhodes, American installation artist, dies. In creative writing class, they told us the trick to catching beauty on paper is to write something bloody, hidden behind the visceral walls we put up for others. When I was really young, my grandma would take me to swimming lessons, where they told me to hold on to the edge and wait as the instructors floated each kid across the water one by one. I remember watching the older kids at the other side of the pool, gangly legs gliding, taking one step after another, effortless. And as I watched them, I convinced myself to let go and sunk to the bottom. I stood there, underneath the water, weirdly calm, gazing up at the soft undulations of light reflecting off the surface, until I saw the fuzzy, curling, swirling outline of my grandmother as she pulled me up. And as I sucked in a large breath, I didn't realize how easily I could have died, because in my mind, death wasn't even a possibility. Fast forward to when I'm 11 or 12, and I'm lying on my bed, and it's dark, and I'm restless, turning over and over in my bed, and I just can't sleep. My heart is just beating so fast. It's 11 p.m., and the phone rings. My mom walks to the kitchen, picks up the phone and listens, and crumples to the ground crying, and at that moment I literally felt so much at once that I didn't feel anything. My parents pull my brother and I into the living room and tell us Grandpa died, but I don't feel sad, I just feel numb. We're driving to Grandma's house, and as they tell her, she seems so calm it's weird, and my uncle arrives, and I can hear him in the other room screaming, he was shot, he was shot. And my aunt's car pulls up, and we're all outside, and they tell her, and she falls to the ground screaming. They have to explain to my little cousin that Grandpa died, and they pull her over to the stairway in the dark. And I look at her, and she's just crying, and I'm just watching. We all get into the car to go to Chicago, because that's where he died, and my grandma has a pillow with his shirt in it, and she keeps pulling it out and smelling it. It's really late, so late, and I'm stuffed in the back with my brother and my cousin, and the car stops, and the adults get out, and I wake up and feel so suffocated, and I'm yelling that I'm hot, so my uncle from the front of the car opens the door and asks if I feel better, and I feel so guilty for complaining, and whenever I think back to that day, that's the feeling I remember. When they finally told me what happened, I wasn't mad, even though I should have been. My grandpa's brother shot him in the head, and I loved Uncle Brad because he was always so nice and funny. And I didn't understand why he would do that, and my mom told me it was because he was having a lot of problems the last couple of years and would gamble all his money and didn't have a family, and my grandpa had everything he wanted. So he shot him in the head and then walked to the police station and handed them a gun and told them what he did. It's weird how after you cry and feel so much, you feel this sense of calm, like everything you thought mattered so much doesn't matter at all. And even though it was the worst time of my life, I hold on to that calm in my memories like a whisper. Lester McDermott, Southerner, NASCAR fan, chronic laugher, moonshine lover, August 1st, 2006, dies.
So after my dad had been killed, I was very upset, angry, didn't understand what had happened and why it had happened. And it took a really long time to kind of get through the trial to even get to a trial. There were some things done within the family that were very upsetting to me, in the extended family, that were very upsetting to me. So I had a lot of, anger. I was very, very upset with people, and really, truly hate towards specific people in the extended family, and didn't understand where they were coming from and why things were happening. And clearly, it was just, I didn't feel like it was anything that I needed to change. I just had those opinions and those things. And I started I didn't have a lot of dreams, and then all of a sudden I started seeing my father in my dreams. He was there, but he just didn't come and embrace me and do all of that. The whole time he was there, he was kind of lecturing me about, you have to let things go, and you need to move on, and it can't be changed, and that kind of a thing, which then when I would wake up, I'd be really upset and kind of angry because he didn't, tell me he loved me. He just kept telling me that I needed to forgive and let go, and it had happened multiple times, and each dream was almost identical, and he would come to me in the dream and again lecture me, and it wasn't like it was something from before. It was like he was right there with me in that moment right then. So each time he would really kind of lecture me, and it was somewhat frustrating to me that he did that, because I just wanted him to embrace me, and so it was kind of one of those things where I thought, why are you coming to me with something that I have such negative feelings about? But I kind of feel like it was his way to continue to show me that he loved me, and have me get rid of that anger and hate, so that I could be a good mom and a good wife and move on, move forward instead of being stuck in that moment. So I kind of feel like that's what I needed more than the embrace at the time. I needed him to kind of embrace me with knowledge and letting me know that I just needed to move on, instead of giving me that hug at that moment. So I'd had this dream several times, and each time it kind of got a little more intense, just because I hadn't moved on. And then I can't say that I'm at a point where I've completely forgiven or will forget, but I am at a better place, and I do feel like he came to me in those dreams for that reason.
In the hospital after I had open heart surgery, the whole process was weird, as it was a birth defect they found at 55, so that was odd. And then him being gone, so we went in, the kids did that, and on the board where the surgeons have what patients are going in, what the doctor's name is, it had the date, the doctor's name, the patient name, and what OR. And as they were wheeling me in, on the board, the girls saw it, and my sister, and it had on the board, day was 6/13, and everything on there said 6/13, 6/13, 6/13. When it came to mine, it had 6/11 on it, and it had the doctor's name, and it had my name and the OR. And my husband's birthday is 6/11. The last time I really got to see him, as in see him, after he died. So it was probably 3-4 years later, something like that, because I was getting sick. I was at the end of my stay almost, and it was about 4:30, 5 in the morning, and I was up, and I was talking to him, and he was in my room, and he was sitting on the side of the bed, and we were talking, and he was telling me I was going to be okay, and it'd be all right, and he loved me. And then he told me that he was going to have to go, and I'm like, no, stay. I says, and he was like, he just patted my hand. It was, like, wow, he was so there. And I remember just feeling comforted, and then he told me though that he says I've got to go, and you're going to be okay, and I've got to go though now. And I'm like, well, please don't go. And he says I've got to go, and he told me he loved me, and then the next thing it was like the curtain was around my bed at the end of my bed in the hospital, how they pull them, and I was calling him. I was flat, I guess, screaming his name to, don't go, Lester, don't go. And I realized, like, oh no, 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 no. And the nurse come in, and I was sitting up in the bed, and she was wanting, kind woman, because they tend to know what's going on. And she was like, I was like, he couldn't stay. I said, and she says, I know, hon. And she sat with me from 5 in the morning till I sort of, I guess, just got myself. She patted my hand, told me that it was okay. Sometimes, they do have to go.
I remember it was after my dad's funeral, and my Aunt Donna, my mom, and I were sitting in the hot tub at their house, and my Aunt Donna had told us about basically dragonflies, and that if you see a lot of dragonflies, it's somebody on the other side. It's kind of like somebody on the other side thinking of you. Well, anyway, we were all sitting in the hot tub, and like a swarm of dragonflies came, and I've seen dragonflies like one or two maybe together, like when we're fishing or something, but this time there was like 20 of them, and we were sitting in the hot tub, and they just swarmed, and they just kept flying around the hot tub, and it's the freakiest thing because I've never seen that many dragonflies in one spot before. And then my mom, she saw them, and my Aunt Donna was like, look, look at all these. And mom was like, well, my mom started crying because, she was thinking that, my dad had sent those to her, and she loves dragonflies anyway. But yeah, and we stayed there, but they were there, I bet, at least in half an hour, and they just didn't go away. They just kept about 20 of them just flying around.
Whenever I'd be upset or something, I would always write to him, and then just random days, like, I don't know what persuaded me to do this, then I'd, like, read them all out loud, like I was sitting talking to him. Like, I would write a full-out letter in letter format, and then, like, fold it up and put it in envelopes. Like, he would be receiving them and getting them. And, like, I don't know if that was a coping thing, but I always felt like he was sitting up, like, it was when I was upset or something. And I'd write, like, 6 or 7 letters, and I always felt like he was sitting over my shoulder just reading them. Like, if you have a letter or something, I feel like if you never give it to anybody, you kind of have that feeling that you never give it to anybody, or that somebody's read it or something, or, like, you have that letter that you feel like you have it, but then you're like, oh, somebody's read it, it's not just me, I always kind of got that vibe, like, well, somebody's reading these, somebody's reading them. And I never knew. But then, like, at the same time, now that I sit back and look back at it, like, why didn't I write letters to Ma'am, or why didn't I write letters to my other papa or anything? Like, I never would write letters to them. I don't know, just weird things like that. Or, like, I remember once I was, like, somewhere, and, like, I heard him start laughing, and I was just, like, I didn't know if we were in a busy place, it was me and all my friends were out, and I was just, like, I just said a joke or something, and we were all laughing, and then I hear him start laughing, and I'm like, wait, but I don't know if it was somebody else that just sounded like him, or, like, weird little things like that, like, you know how you kind of feel when somebody's always there? And, like, I don't know if you know this, but, like, so they didn't tell me that he was murdered, but I knew. And, like, I didn't tell anyone for a while there. And so, like, I remember I was so mean to you guys sometimes, but I'd be so mad at you and Cody because they told you what happened and they didn't tell me. And, like, you guys didn't know that I knew, and nobody knew that I knew until, like, 7th grade was the first time I told anyone. But, like, I always remember, like, I remember Papa being there. Because that's usually what I'd get upset about was, like, you and Cody got to know and I didn't, you know? And I remember I was so mad at you guys all the time because you got to know and I didn't. And then that's when I started writing letters to Papa because I felt like that was my connection to him. Like, you guys got to know that, but I got to write him letters about my life, and he got to read them, and da-da-da-da. Does that make sense? And, like, when Mom and Grandma and all them got to go to the trial, I was so mad. And I remember, like, I wrote so many letters to Papa, and I remember he was like, I felt like he was sitting there reading them. I was so mad all the time. Like, that whole part of my childhood, I was so mad. And then, like, right after the trial, like, I remember I would Google it so much. Like, I would Google it just because I knew, like, I knew something, and you guys, like, knew I didn't know, or I didn't know. Great grammar, Kelsey. And I was like, I would Google it all the time. And every time I was Googling it one day, and, like, I just, like, it got to, like, a more intense part where, like, he was trying to plead the insanity and stuff. And, like, I just kind of started crying. And then, like, I remember I wrote the letter to Papa. And then I didn't want to research anymore. And, like, it was almost like he was telling me that, you know, you're still so young. You don't need to know that.
I mean, things that you don't see doesn't mean they're not there. We think we know all, but we don't. Every day it's changing. But I know there are people watching and taking care. And if that's your ancestors or your favorite friends or an aunt or your grandparents, then why does it have to stop then at the grave?